Hello, everybody. So, I want to talk to you today about something that I talk about every single day of my life, and that is so called oscillation, which occurs after a so called awakening. So, the reason I say so called awakening is that you're already awake. So, you can't, there's no possible way that you can wake up again, right? Or more, or anything like that. And I can't wake you up, for God's sake. I mean, I know I say that a lot and I talk about that, but that's really that's just marketing because that's the term that everybody uses, but it's not true. The truth is that you're already awake right now, right now. You know, the very one that thinks it's not awakeness is awakeness. That's the way it works. So we've already discussed, like last video, about this has to be enough, and that we drummed that in because there's just one thing going on, right? There's just oneness. There's at least within the manifested realm, and there's just oneness beyond that too. It's just that oneness or what is it encompasses far more than just manifestation. So there is the sense that we have an awakening. Because when awakeness becomes aware of itself, there can be a feeling like, oh, it's like coming out of a dream. Because that's what it is. It is coming out of a dream. It's coming out of the dream of Fred. It's coming out of the dream of, it believes, awakeness is dreaming that it's a Fred. Now, the interesting thing is that this gets pretty tricky, is that awakeness, there's only awakeness. So what we're talking about is that there's only awakeness, but there's an experience of a Fred. And you are having the experience of a Fred, but you are not Bob, you are Carol, you are awakeness. So awakeness is having an experience of Fred as Fred, and it's having an experience as that which is enjoying or loathing Fred. So there's no oscillation. I mean, what oscillation could there possibly be? Where would oneness go when it oscillated? What happens when awakeness blinks out? When awakeness ceases to be awake, what do you think happens? Awakeness doesn't have the capacity to not be awake. Awakeness does not have the capacity for sleep. Those are my little dogs. They have something called a jolly ball, and they're just crazy about it. And I gave it to them, and now, see, and I hired them to be dogs, and now I'm not happy because they're being dogs with the dog that I gave, with the toy that I bought for them to make noise with. See, if not for this, I could cut a good video, I could be clear, I could be awake, and everything would be fine. But actually, that's what's happening, is that the dogs are making noise. See, and it's only my opinion, and possibly yours, that that's not the way that things should be going. Because I noticed that it is the way that things are going. So I'm thinking that you and I, unless we want to suffer, need to get used to the idea that the dogs are going to make noise in the background of this video. So, back to the idea of awakeness. See, now the funny thing is, look at that. We surrendered to it, and the damn noise stopped. Do you see how that works? That's not why we surrendered to it, but it is interesting to notice that when we did, it did stop. Okay? And I don't have a guy back there rolling a ball that I have hired, right? I don't have any body working the gig, so to speak, yet. I mean, I may hire somebody, but I don't have anybody yet. So there's only awakeness. Awakeness does not have the capacity for sleep. There's only awakeness, and because there's only awakeness, awakeness does not have the capacity for oscillation. In other words, oscillation, let me describe it for those of you who are new. Oscillation is a term that we use to describe the experience that I'm clear, oh, I've got this thing, talking about non-dual truth, I'm clear, I've got this thing that, oh, I lost it. Now that experience that's a unit-based experience. It's got nothing to do with awakeness, right? It's just an experience. It's not really happening, but it feels like it's happening, looks like it's happening to the ones involved. So I'm not gonna say it's not real, because it's absolutely as real as anything else. But we can talk about that sometime too. But there's no oscillation, there's no capacity for it. There's only awakeness. So what happens is that when awakeness wakes up to itself, which has happened for most of you probably. I mean, you've had at least a little glimpse sometime. Most of you have, or some of you have. I don't know about most of you, but I'm guessing. But a whole hell of a lot of you have. I know, because you write me. So, and I had lots of glimpses prior to. I even had one short awakening prior to the larger thing that I determined, that I call an awakening in 2006. And why do I call that? Because the unit thinks it remembers an experience that it had in 2006. That's right. Yes, September 2006. Sadly, I don't remember the date, because if I did, I would just like frame it in gold or something. So, but the truth is that no unit woke up in 2006 or any other year. I talk about 1992, the awakening then, and who had it? How can something that's already awake wake up? You get that? And how is it that something that has no capacity for unawareness, how does it not be awareness? So you're not aware, you're awareness. You're not awake, you're awakeness. There's no capacity there for anything else. So we've talked about before that awakeness can experience two states. It can experience conscious awakeness, which is what's happening right now in front of this camera, and is happening in front of many cameras out there, whether or not yours is one of them. So in other words, I know that this is not other than me, that there's not anything other than me, that there's just me. So that's conscious. If I don't know that, then guess what I am? I just don't cease to be awakeness. There's only awakeness. So if you have one thing, then it can't be one thing becoming two things. It has to be one thing experiencing two experiences, right? Having two different experiences. So I'm still the same awakeness, only now I don't know it. I'm just like the rest of the people in my neighborhood, right? So as far as I know. So this idea that awakeness, can somehow move in and out of clarity is absurd. I am clarity. I cannot move in and out of clarity. I use that word all the time. My God, my website is named Awakening Clarity now. But clarity is just a term. It's a convention. It's an agreement that we have, just like awakening and enlightenment and all these other things. They are conventions. They are agreements. And they're handy. They're really, really handy for awakeness to experience itself in this way. It's part of the dualistic experience. The hankering for the non-dual is part of the dualistic experience. And the dualistic experience, however, is occurring where? It's occurring within this. It's actually, the dualistic experience is non-dual. The non-dual experience is dualistic. Put that in your pipe and smoke it for a while. So we have to get used to paradox if we're going to live here. And that's what it's all about. It's not about visiting. See, that's the thing, is that it's like when I was trying to get sober, I remember that a sponsor of mine told me one time, he said, Fred, the willingness to go to any lengths includes not drinking. And that just hit me like a bullet. It had never dawned on me. This guy was actually talking about quitting. I had never dreamed of actually quitting. I had dreamed of stopping long enough to get my act back together and then drinking and losing it all again. But I didn't have, the only thing I could remember was they get you back together and then we can drink. The losing it all again, that was the part of the story I never told myself. So it can be the same way here. There can be, Willie's come back. That's an excellent thing. So we can have this experience where we think that I've got it. Who is it that's got it? Nobody's got it. Nobody gets it. When we say he gets it, it's a lie. It's a bald-faced lie. It really is. It is just if I say that, and if I say he's awake, she's awake, it's a lie. It's a convention. It's a tool. We will use it because we are talking, because I am awakeness pretending to be more than one thing. And when I'm pretending to be more than one thing, I have to lie to myself, right? I have to really go with it. I got to pretend that there's an awakened teacher over here and there's an unawakened student out there. That's bullshit, right? There's just awakeness. There's no teacher here and there's no student here. This is just happening. It's a choiceless happening, right? With the sense of choice in it. And where does the sense of choice come from? It arises from the sense of Fred. And Fred thinks that there's no Fred. So we're just talking about patterns. Patterns that somehow shift into believing, into having beliefs, constructing beliefs where that there actually is a Fred. I don't understand how it works, folks. I report on you what works to come out of the dream, and I try to show you the patterns of the dream as I discover them, but I haven't discovered them all. I haven't graduated, right? I mean, it's not like I am at the top of the mountain. I don't know that there is a top of the mountain, right? I strongly suspect that there is not a top to the mountain. So there is just the climbing, and we're doing it together. And we're learning this as together. And this teaching gets increasingly clear because guess what? The unit is that Fredness is clearing out. There's less and less Fredness. So there's less and less confusion over here. My God, when I started doing this way back in 2010, there was a lot of Fredness present. I remember talking to Adyashanti in Asheville. And I was awake, and he knew it. We had talked on the phone a couple of times. He knew it. He treated me as such. Yet the first time I met him in person, the only time I met him in person, made it sound like Adyashanti and I are personal buddies, but it was the only time I ever met him in person, and it was with 300 other people. But when I did, and I got a chance to talk to him, the only thing I was concerned with was that he see that I was awake. Now that ain't a great sign of clarity. There was awakeness functioning there. He had already acknowledged it. It was awakeness, and it was functioning pretty brightly. Because a month after that day of total unconscious behavior, where I'm trying to convince Adyashanti that I'm awake, I started waking up people myself. God almighty. So awakeness has no timeline, see? There wasn't Ajah didn't give me the 33 steps that I needed to go through in order to start waking people up. We think that it's the character clearing up. What we forget is that the character is make-believe. Fred is not clearing as this teaching goes along. And Fred is not seeing through the mist, gazing at clarity over there and beginning to see more and more clarity. It doesn't work that way. This is the backwards part. It's awakeness that's looking through this conditioning. And as the heavier the conditioning, the less clear awakeness will be able to be with itself. Because that's all there is itself. There's only me, only you, anybody can say it. There's one I. It doesn't make any difference who but says it. It doesn't make any, and make any difference if Willie stood up and said, I am. And, okay, you certainly are, right? Or you certainly have a sense of being. I don't want to say Willie is, I just don't, but I certainly can't say he's not. But I think it's more true to state that there's a sense of being there. I can spot it. It's running after a ball. And there's a sense of being here. It's cutting a video or trying to, and trying to make sense to itself. Do you get that? There's nothing else. They're just this. They're just you. And so when I talk to people every day and they tell me, well, Fred, I tell you what, is that I get caught up in my work. And who is it that's making that report? That's Bob. Okay? Bob is telling me that, Fred, Bob, get caught up in my work. Because, see, Bob ain't got no work. There's no Bob. Awakeness has work, but awakeness only has one job. And I don't even know the point of it, but it seems to be that awakeness's ultimate job is to wake up to itself. And it's just, when the Hindus say Leela, the play of God, I'm with them. It has exactly the purpose that you assign to it. Life has exactly the meaning that you assign to it. In my world, in my story, as Fredness, this teaching that's coming through this unit is important. Is it? To who? There's only me. Right? What do I think I'm going to do with myself? But it is relatively important, I know, because I get emails every day. Oh, thank you so much. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Right? And and I'm grateful for those. Don't think I'm not. Don't think I'm not. Because I'm not just the vastness, I'm also the little man. You know, I'm the little man. I was thinking about it earlier today, that I'm accommodating a couple of people in Hollywood. You know why I'm doing that? Because I'm starstruck, because I'm still a little man, and I love the movies, and I think Hollywood is the heart of the world, and I think that's where I can have a tremendous amount of impact. But still, it's fun. Oh, I don't want to pretend to you that it's not. I mean, that's just like, oh, I'm way above all. That's not true. I'm not way above all that stuff. There's still a guy here. There's a sense of guy here. There is a unit here within relativity, which is as real as anything else. And this unit, this story, the Fredness, believes that it's seeing through the mist into awakeness, and that it relaxes. I get caught up in my work, and then I catch myself and I relax into it. I relax into it. That's a Bob report. Bob is caught up. Bob's attention is on what? It's on the content of this arising. That's what Bob's attention is on. Just like everybody's attention. That's what happens with me if I'm starstruck. I'm caught up in the content of this arising. But I'm also aware of who I really am. And I know that awakeness is happy to use the shallow motives of this unit to push its own agenda. It's been doing it for years. I mean, it pushes me with all the human buttons, right? And this unit does what awakeness wants it to do, because it can't not, because it is awakeness, right? It's not that the unit is separate from awakeness and doing what awakeness wants. It's awakeness, and this is just the shape that oneness is taking right now. So this oscillation, you are never going to get it as long as you think you're that human being over there. I'm not talking to a human being. I never met a human being. I don't know of any human beings. I know of things that look and act, and they're human beings on one level. Yeah, they're human beings, but they're still experiences. They're experiences for me, and I'm beyond experience. I'm not an experience. And this lust for experience that the character always has. Oh, it's just supposed to be more than this. Good luck. Good luck. But that lust for experience is what it's what keeps you from being clear right now. Because see, I have a friend of mine in San Francisco, a retired psychiatrist, and he's a great student and now a very good friend, and we talk every Friday. I love it. So, and I helped him just this past summer with something, and now he's just woo. I mean, he's clear as a mountain view. And I'm going to share with you what I shared with him, which is that you are awakeness whether you feel like it or not. You can't not be awakeness because there is only awakeness. So this is awakeness, speaking to awakeness about awakeness. There's nothing else that can ever speak. If we're talking about the Atlanta Braves and the World Series, that's still awakeness talking to awakeness about awakeness, because there's nothing else. And the Atlanta Braves are as good an illusion as anybody else. They don't fascinate me, but they fascinate the hell out of a bunch of other people. So I'm the odd man out, right? I can't sit here and tell you, oh, that's just way too... No, it is what it is. And what is it? It's big time entertainment. It's not very deep. Says who? Where's the yardstick for what's deep and what's shallow? That's what I want to know. Hell, we get on our holier than thou spiritual trip. We're the ones who really are serious. We're the ones who are really doing it. Well, isn't that assuming that we're the ones first? There's no ones here. We're not holier than thou, we are thou. And everything else is thou. There is only thou. Oscillation is a unit experience. It's a character's experience because the character believes that it has been clear and now it's not. Or the character, or because when true clarity is there, there's no character present. So there's no one there saying, oh, now I've got it. If there is someone saying that, then it's not complete. It's not complete clarity. So you can think, oh, it's not complete immersion into oneness. What the hell can emerge? I mean, it can immerse itself in oneness. There's only oneness. You can't immerse yourself. You cannot morph into oneness. You cannot combine with oneness. None of that. Does the drop merge into the ocean? What drop? What ocean? There's just awakeness. That the ocean is the ocean is merging into the drop. And that's just an appearance. The drop and the ocean. There's no drop, there's no ocean. But there's an experience of drop and ocean and merging. And there's an experience of individual, there's an experience of awakening, there's an experience of clearing, there's all of that. But as we talk about it here and now, that is dualistic. It just is. We're stuck with these words. You know, one of the reasons I've gotten to where I just can't write a post anymore. I just can't write a post because it's just not direct enough. Because because this thing is a whole package. This is the crazy thing that moves its arms and whose eyes dart around and all of that. And don't think any of that is an error. I don't do that. There's no one here to do it. I do it when I speak as awakeness, but I don't even do it as awakeness. It just happens. It just happens. But it's all happening actually perfectly. I got an email from a woman yesterday, and she's been searching for 60 years, and she just wanted to have a conversation. Wanted to ask me a few questions. So, and a few questions will not help her. Answering a few questions will not help her. That's what she's been doing for 60 years. When you answer that question, another one arises. The only thing that satisfies it, I love a Snickers bar. And that's their ad. It's Snickers satisfies. The only thing that satisfies is awakening. And that won't satisfy for long. Not if it isn't followed by clearing. But it's not the character that's clearing, and that's who wants to clear. It's not the character that there is a sense of oscillation that is experienced by a sense of character that is an experience of awakeness. Awakeness itself is not an experience, but it's not non-experience, because there's only experiencing. There's only experiencing. That's all there is. So I can't write posts, so I do these because this is more clear. But I'm not trying to tell you that I can't tell you the truth in written posts, and therefore, but I can tell you the truth in videos. I can't tell you the truth. You are the truth. That's as close as I can get. You're not going to experience what it is that you are as something other than this. You are the one thing. You are oneness. You are awakeness. Whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you believe it or not, whether you notice it or not, whether you're a non-dual student or not, you're still awakeness. The worst mass murderer on the planet is awakeness. And the good news is that oneness played every role. It played the murderer, it played the victim, it was also the knife or the gun, it was also the sky and it was the rooms that this occurred in, whatever. There's just oneness. And oneness, there's this experiencing. Doesn't mean that within relativity that we don't take precautions against such things, and we don't prosecute such things and isolate these individuals. Obviously we do. Because we don't reach into the philosophy bag and say, well, if none of it's real, who cares? And then there's no one here, and what's the point of my life? That is fishing from the philosophy pier. And you ain't going to get nothing but boots when you fish from the philosophy pier. It is a dead end. It hasn't worked. For those of you who are not currently consciously awake, it hasn't worked for you. And it's not going to suddenly work for you later this afternoon or tomorrow. It doesn't work. This works. Noticing what you are and coming to accept what you are. Coming to accept what you are, that's the clearing process. Coming to note the ramifications of oneness, that's the clearing process. The clearing process is not actually so much about answering questions as it is asking them. It's not that the answers here have gotten more and more skillful. The questions here have gotten more and more skillful. Awakeness is blossoming. It's blooming right in front of you. Right in front of me. Betsy and I are just blown away. We're blown away by our whole lives. We're really and truly, we're just like this. It is just too fantastic. We are so great. It doesn't mean that that's the way it's supposed to be. Well, it does, because that's the way it is. But it doesn't mean that's the way it's supposed to be for everybody. It doesn't mean that if you wake up that your life is going to suddenly be perfect. Your life is already perfect. You are life. Over here, it's simply being experienced in an exquisite way. We don't know why. But other than the fact that we know that these units are lucky. And that's the reason we're so, so grateful. Life is not fair. Thank God. I want nothing to do with justice. I am on the mercy program and I ain't coming off of it. I do not want what this unit deserves. I will accept the grace that's been given. And if that sounds a little dualistic, that's fine. And if you, why fish from the philosophy pier? If you're scared and alone and things are going poorly for you, why talk about philosophy? If you want to pray, pray. I have prayed. I will pray again. I actually don't know that. But what am I praying to? I don't worry about it. I don't ask that question. That's fishing from the philosophy pier. You just do what you do. It's when I say I pray, I'm in the unit. The unit puts up its hands and says, I can't be all there is. No kidding. It's what happens. I don't do it. It's just what's happening. There's no one here to do it. There's no oscillation. There's no awakening. There's no falling asleep. These are all terms. They can be skillful terms, and I will continue to use them. But they are all untrue. There's just this. There's just this awakeness. As it is. Whether you agree with that statement or not. Whether you believe it or not. Oneness is your experience right now because there's no alternative. You just don't want to notice that, oh, he means this oneness. You're holding out for the other oneness. I know. I did for years. I get it. This woman who wrote me last night, I sent it to Lacey, my new administrative assistant, so she could see how I handled an email like that. And she wrote back and said, I feel kind of sorry for her. And I wrote back, this woman needs to suffer. She needs to suffer some more. How do I know? Because she wants to meet me because it's her terms and her questions and this, that, and the other. And I said, she just needs to suffer some more. That's it. She might need to suffer for 3 more lifetimes. I don't know. I don't want to take that away from her. She needs that. She needs that in order to get here. I needed it desperately. Says Fred. Notice that this is just Fredness arising. We don't want to take away her suffering. That's what I told Leslie. She needs it to get home. And when she's ready, she'll come to the mountain on the mountain's terms. That's exactly what I told her. What I told Lacey. When she's ready, she'll come to the mountains on the mountain's terms and not hers. And ultimately, that's what we all have to do. And I'm not speaking to a bunch of units. I'm not speaking to a bunch of unawakened people out there. This is awakeness speaking to itself. And I just noticed that I'm in love with myself. So are you. You just haven't noticed it yet. See, the funny thing about winning the lottery is you got to know you won the lottery. My wife is right over there. She's the greatest thing on the planet. I hit the lottery when I met Betsy 16 years ago. The great thing is I knew I hit the lottery when I met Betsy. And I have treated her like the lottery winning that she is. And you know what? She is clearly imperfect because she's she's wonderful, but she's got very poor taste in men. And she thinks she hit the lottery too. I know, it's surprising, isn't it? Talk about divine hypnosis. But she does, and so she treats me as if she hit the lottery. And we treat our dogs like they hit the lottery. Like we hit the lottery with them. And they feel like they hit the lottery. They know. Trust me, they do know. We know we've hit the lottery. We share it with the birds in our yard. We share it with the squirrels in our yard. I get on this YouTube and I share it with you right here, right now, because I know that this is a very, very lucky unit. But your unit is lucky too. How do I know? It's listening to this one. There's no arrogance in that statement whatsoever. You've come to this teaching. You've come to the non-dual teachings, whether you're a student of the mind right to the moment. And you're lucky because this happens to be extraordinarily clear. It is to much to my amazement. But it is. But it is. Okay. I guess we got another one out, didn't we? Well, we keep on meeting like this. People are going to start to talk. I love you.